доповідь і цікаві ідеї. Так. І я повинна передати слово нашому наступному доповідачу. Це Урі Левін, член правління Європейської федерації психоаналітичної психотерапії, заступник голови секції групової психоаналітичної психотерапії, клінічний психолог, лектор та супервізор у програмі психоаналітичної психотерапії в Тель-Авівському університеті. Працює переважно у приватній практиці в Тель-Авіві з дорослими парами та підлітками. І пленарна доповідь «Подорож до реляційності. Груповий аналіз та його терапевтична цінність у наш час». Прошу, Урі. Передаю вам слово.
Thank you very much, Tamara. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Gira, for the wonderful presentation, which my presentation will be connected to your presentation in many ways. Because I think that I will focus today on group analysis as a very good psychotherapy system, the way I see it. And I think that one of the advantages of group analysis is that in group in general and in group analysis in particular, one can explore maybe better than in individual psychoanalysis, the territory of brotherhood and sisterhood and our relations with brothers and sisters because of the structure of the group, because the structure of the group enables issues of brothers and sisters to come out, to come up more easily than in the individual psychoanalytic setting. When we focus on group analysis, we focus also on the possibility to explore the role of the mother in each one's life, how it functions, how it was institutionalized in our personality, to what degree, and so on. My presentation will also focus on the fact that psychoanalysis has developed in 120 years of psychoanalysis, has developed from Freud's classical model, which is in a way, as I will explain, a one-person psychology, a model in which there is a therapist and a patient with a very clear borders between the position of the therapist and the position of the patient, to a much more relational two-person psychology in which, although we have a patient and a therapist, the borders are not so defined, are not so clear, are not so strict, and the psychoanalytic moment is not something that happens to the patient, but something that happens between the patient and the analyst. This is in one sentence, the essence of the idea of relationality. And psychoanalysis has shifted to a large extent from Freudian classical one-person psychology to a relational two-person psychology. But in a way, group analysis and Fuchs's ideas about group analysis in a way preceded relational psychoanalysis in about 20, 30 years. The problem was that there was no relations between relational psychoanalysis and group analysis. It was in a way neglected. So for individual psychotherapists who know something about relational psychoanalysis, the idea that group analysis was there 20, 30 years before, it's a kind of surprise. And I will try to touch these points in my presentation as well. So let's start our quick journey by saying something about Freud, which I'm sure that you are all familiar with. In classical psychoanalysis for Freud, the basic concept of human beings is that man is a discharge, striving creature. The main motivation for us, according to Freud, is to discharge our drives, and from discharging our drives, we get pleasure, we get satisfaction. The analyst, according to classical Freudian psychoanalysis, is seen as a chimney sweep. Yeah, this is the metaphor that was brought to psychoanalysis, that what we psychoanalysts do, according to Freudian psychoanalysis, is like sweeping the chimney so the unconscious can more easily come out, come up. And this is where we get cured by letting the unconscious become conscious. And the one last point is that the object in classical Freudian model, the object is only means. I mean, our relatedness to objects is not something inherent in our psychology, but the object is one way for us human beings to satisfy our needs. So we don't have, according to Freud, we don't have a real, genuine interest in objects. We are interested in objects because by getting connected to other human beings, getting connected to objects, this is a good way to satisfy the need. Now, object relation theories, and of course we can mention Melanie Klein, Winnicott, Bion, Fairbairn, and many others, they have a different view on the basic motivation of human beings, because for object relations theories, we are not drive discharge creatures, we are object striving creatures. I mean, our relatedness to objects are inherent in our psychology. Drives, according to Melanie Klein, for example, are always object seeking. We cannot speak about drive without speaking about the object this drive is related to. And the therapist, according to object relation theories, is not a chimney sweep. The therapist is more like a significant other or significant mother, whom through the connection of the patient to this object, to the mother or to the other, something can develop in the psychology of the patient. I mentioned that we switched from one-person psychology to two-person psychology, but there are a few predecessors of the idea of a two-person psychology, also in the time of Freud, because, for example, Adler, who emphasized the importance of social elements in his theory. Okay, he was furthering himself from the very Freudian classical idea of, you know, only what is going on between the patient and the therapist, only what is going on in the psychology of the patient, and not speaking about, not elaborating about the social factors. So Adler already mentioned the importance of the social factors. Jung, another brother of Freud, was, you know, killed, or at least there was an attempt to kill him by the father, mentioned that the collective unconscious, and with the idea of the collective unconscious, he refers to some structures of the unconscious which are shared among human beings in a more, not in a personal way, but in a more broad way, which means that we are connected to each other, not just by our ego, super ego structure, but there are some aspects that unite us, unified us as human beings. This is the idea of the archetypes and the social unconscious and the collective unconscious. Ferenczi, Gila, you mentioned also Ferenczi in your lecture, another brother who was murdered. There are many brothers in the times of Freud that were murdered, or at least there were many attempts to murder. Ferenczi already created many ideas of intersubjectivity and mutuality in psychoanalysis, and also the importance of the countertransference, which brings us closer to the idea of a two-person psychology. When you enter countertransference into the picture, you already speak about the therapist as more involved in the process of psychoanalysis. And Henry Stack-Sullivan in the 50s in the United States also emphasized interpersonal relations as most important in the psychoanalytic endeavor. So you see a lot of theorists in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, even before group analysis was created, who already brought relational ideas to the psychoanalytic field. Now, relational psychology or relational psychoanalysis, which is not actually a real school in psychoanalysis. In a way, on the contrary, I think that the relationals themselves object the idea that they are school. This is what they are against. They are against the idea of schools, because relational psychoanalysis try to be as inclusive as possible. So you have a lot of ideas, a lot of relational ideas under this umbrella of relational psychoanalysis. But I think that 2 or 3 shared points by all relational psychoanalysts is that mutual recognition or intersubjectivity is something very important, that we are not speaking anymore about object to object relation, we speak about subject to subject relations. And the most important factor in our development, and also the most important factor in psychoanalysis, is exploring how subjectivity and intersubjectivity develops in the psychoanalytic process. And we all know it from our patients and from our analysis that we are conducting, that for example, for some patients, it is very difficult to even acknowledge the subjectivity of the analyst. And some patients enjoy the subjectivity of the analyst and can use the subjectivity of the analyst as a resource for growing and development. So I think that the relationals, by emphasizing intersubjectivity and the importance of the subjectivity of the analyst, they don't mean that the analyst should enforce his subjectivity on the patient, but that the analyst will be willing to let the patient explore his subjectivity in a way that that would fit the patient's needs and the patient's tempo and the patient's psychological abilities. The therapist in relational psychoanalysis, therefore, is much more present in the process than in orthodox psychoanalysis. We are not speaking anymore about either transference or countertransference processes. We speak, for example, about a transference countertransference matrix. So not that there is no transference and countertransference as separate processes, but we cannot speak about transference without relating to countertransference and vice versa. What are the fundamental motivations of human beings according to relational psychoanalysis? That we are born with a primary need for relatedness. So according to relational psychoanalysis, again, the relatedness to the mother, to the object, is inherited and not acquired. And also that the social experience is a primary motivation and organizes our mental life. So it is not that we are born as individuals disconnected from the social world. We are born social creatures. Sociality is something which is inborn in all of us. It is not only the drives that matters, it's the social relatedness and social connectedness that we are born into. And therefore we are seen by the relational psychoanalysis as much more social creatures than, for example, in classical psychoanalysis. This means, for example, that in classical psychoanalysis, if a patient would speak, for example, about something that happens in our current reality, in our current society, in our current world, in classical psychoanalysis, the analyst would probably try to understand what the patient speaks about in terms of transference, in terms of psychological, psychoanalytical metaphors, transference, relatedness to the authority figure, there would be a kind of a reduction of the social world into classical psychoanalytical conceptions. But I think that relational psychoanalysts would pay more attention and would allow much broader playing ground for exploring the social aspects of the patient. His gender, his social class, his structure of the family, etc., etc. And not trying to restrict our observation of the patient only to individual psychology. Okay, let's read together one definition, one possible definition of the difference between two-person psychology versus one-person psychology. This is a definition by Chaim Weinberg, one of our colleagues of the Israeli Institute of Group Analysis. So I quote Chaim, he says that if the mind is inherently interactional, if we speak about a mind which is interactional in essence, nothing is created by one individual. And we need to look at all phenomena in therapy as created by both therapists and patients. And if we speak about the group setting, so we speak about not just one patient and one therapist, we speak about the group and the group members with the conductor. I want to switch to, can we switch not to the next slide, but to one after? Yeah, to this. Now I want to start bringing into the picture Fuchs and group analysis. Let's read together two quotes, one by Mitchell. This is not Juliet Mitchell that Gira was speaking about. This is a quote by Stephen Mitchell, one of the most known relational psychoanalysts.
The father of relational.
Yeah, in a way, the father. Is there someone who is willing to read the quote in Russian or in Ukrainian? Taras, maybe you can read it for us, but unmute yourself. Thank you.
I don't think if I can, because I believe I'm in the English channel, and since I'm
is there anyone who sees the Russian translation who can read it for us?
Yes, I see.
Yaroslav, thank you.
Групповой анализ и реляционность. Митчелл. Аффективные состояния зачастую интерперсональны. Интенсивные аффекты имеют тенденции генерировать соответствующие аффекты в окружающих. С самого начала жизни на глубоко бессознательном уровне на всем протяжении жизни аффекты вызываются интерперсонально посредством плотного резонанса между людьми, безотносительно к тому, кто именно и что именно чувствует. It's Mitchell.
Yeah, this is, yeah. Wait a second, because I will need you for another reading of Fuchs, but 1 second. So this is Mitchell in 2000, okay? Starting to define the idea of relational psychoanalysis by saying that people's affects resonates in each other, that we have resonance, that we have an influence of one emotional word on the other emotional word by resonating, by affecting each other in what Mitchell calls a transpersonal influence. Okay, so this is Mitchell, 2000. Now let's get to Fuchs, 1973, and read what he says. Yeah, this is only something of what he says, of course. Ярослав, please.
Когда люди собираются в малую группу, они создают поле ментальных событий, трансперсональных процессов, которые, словно рентгеновские лучи, в телесной сфере пронизывают отдельных индивидов насквозь, образуя нечто наподобие сети.
Can you see the similarities? Can you see the ideas, how they resonate? And this is, you know, this is 30, 40 years before Mitchell started to conceptualize these ideas. Fuchs already writes about transpersonal processes, writes about how human beings influence each other like an X-ray, like that when we enter into the social realm, the social zone, so we start to affect each other without being able to control it, yeah? And the influence, the presence of others penetrate our psychology, our existence. But when we say penetrate, it doesn't mean that it has to be in a bad way. Yeah, penetrating is not just bad. Penetrating in a way that it creates us, it builds us. And when Fuchs later speaks about networks and speaks about matrices that happens in the group, that creates the group, this is what he means, that when we sit together in a group, immediately the process of influencing each other, resonating in each other, okay, penetrating each other, this process starts immediately, and this is what creates, according to Fuchs, the network, the matrix. Now, this concept of the matrix is an interesting concept because the matrix, at the same way, is being created by the group members. Yeah, each group member contributes something to the matrix, but at the same time, the matrix defines what is going to get into the group and how the group members are going to work with what is in the group. The matrix is like a kind of a glasses through which individuals experience what is going on in the group. So the matrix at the same time is being created by the participants and creating the participants or the specific group in a specific moment. Let's read a few more quotes of Fuchs. If we can switch to the next slide. Thank you. Yaroslav, you're still there?
Yeah.
Good. So can you read the first quote of Fuchs from 57?
Okay. Что нуждается в объяснении, так это не существование групп, а существование индивидов.
Yeah. This is really reversing the orthodox order. The orthodox order is that first we are individuals and only after that we become social. Yeah, we are individual creatures, and you know, then Winnicott said there is no such a thing as an infant, there is only a mother unit infant. So first there is the baby, then there is the baby and the mother as a unit, and only then the father gets into the picture, and the brothers and the sister and the family and the tribe and the society and the world. What Fuchs offers us is to reverse the order. What Fuchs offers us is the idea that from the moment that we are born, we are social creatures. We are born into society. We are born with society in ourselves. So what needs to be explained is not the idea of a group. A group, this is the natural structure of our psychology. What needs to be explained is the individual, how we develop individuality, not how we develop, you know, our group idea or our society, sociological ideas. Let's read the third quote, Yaroslav. Thank you.
Third one, right?
The third one. There is a social...
Существует социальное или интерперсональное бессознательное, которое предшествует появлению индивидуального сознания.
Yeah. So reversing the order goes also for the unconscious, because according to Fuchs, a large part of our unconscious is not personal, is not our unconscious. A large part of our unconscious is a social unconscious, is an unconscious that is there from the moment we start our lives. This is the unconscious which is there because we are connected, we are a part of a culture, a part of a society. And this society has experienced in its history, let's say, a lot of traumatic moments and a lot of glorious moments. And all this experience, which organized the life of a certain society, is already from the beginning introjected in the baby's unconscious. Which means that if I am an Israeli and a Jew, and you are a Ukrainian and a Christian, if we will sit in the same group and we will be participating in the same process, we are probably going to experience different experiences, not just because our family psychology or individual psychology is different. We are going to experience it in different ways because our social unconscious is different. I work for some time together with Gira in Turkey. And in Turkey, one of the characteristics of the social unconscious is that there is no place for failures. When you read the history of the Turks, when you listen to Turks speaking about their history, there are no failures. There are only stories of victories, of winnings, no mentioning failures, which is, for example, so different from the Israeli or from the Jewish social unconscious. We have so much pleasure from relating to our failures, from relating to our catastrophes. We get so much from mentioning it again and again and again, even if it's not necessary, even if it's not the position. So we like very much to be the victim. We get so much from this victim position.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, well, that's part of us, not all of us, but part of us. So if I would sit with a Turk colleague and listen to a story of a failure, probably, not necessarily, but probably we both are going to experience different experiences, also because the social unconscious is different. Okay. What is group analysis? I know that some of you are group analysts and know much about group analysis, but some of you might not be. And so let me, in few words, say something about group analysis. Yaroslav, can you read it in Russian?
Okay. Групповой анализ в нескольких словах. Групповой анализ является теоретическим и практическим подходом к исследованию групп и социума, а также к исследованию индивидов в группе и социуме. Его истоки можно обнаружить в психоанализе, теории систем, психологии развития, семейной психотерапии и социологических теориях.
Yeah. So group analysis helps us to understand the individual in the society, as well as understanding groups and understanding the society. But I want to stay for a second with understanding the individual in the society, because understanding the individual in the society is also understanding the individual in the family, and understanding the individual in his relations, not only to his fathers and mothers, but also to his brothers and sisters. And that goes back to Gira's beautiful lecture about the role of the mother. Now, I don't want to say that you cannot work on these issues in individual psychotherapy or psychoanalysis. I mean, if you are aware of the importance of brothers and sisters, you can work on these issues also in individual psychoanalysis. Juliet Mitchell is not a group therapist. She's an individual psychoanalyst, and she writes about psychoanalysis. But I invite you to reflect on your patients and your therapies, and to remember, when was the last time you worked with your patients in your therapies on issues of brotherhood and sisterhood, and when you worked about the relations with the father or with the mother. I'm convinced that statistically, it would be much easier for you to remember moments of, father-mother relations than moments of brother-sister relations. So again, this is what group analysis, part of what group analysis enables us, is to work more on the horizontal transference, and not just on the vertical transference to the authority figure. Now, the fact that we have a conductor in group analysis means that we can also work on the vertical transference. It's not just horizontal, it's not either horizontal or vertical. You can work at the same time on the vertical axis and on the horizontal axis. Now there are only more 2 slides that I want to show you. Yeah, this is one definition of group analysis by Fuchs, who says that group analysis is the analysis by the group, of the group, including its conductor. And this is also, again, a relational idea. If we speak about two-person psychology and we speak about the involvement of the therapist, of the analyst in the process. So here again, Fuchs, 75, he already speaks about it. Analysis by the group, of the group, including its conductor, which means that the conductor is not doing the work for the group. The conductor is part of the process, is part of the work. Okay? Well, we don't have much time. So maybe we stop here and give 3 or 4 minutes to questions or comments, because I can go on more and more and I have more to say, but maybe next time. So thank you very much for listening.
В мене є питання. Яка різниця між концепцією релятивістського аналізу і, наприклад, колективним несвідомим Юнга?
Yeah, it's a good question which needs more than 2 minutes to answer. I think that when Jung spoke about the collective unconscious, he was really interested in a very much in a collective, humane experience, something which is shared by all human beings, and it has kind of almost a mystical spirit in this idea, the idea of the archetypes, something that goes to prehistory, and so on and so on. I think that when Fuchs speaks about the social unconscious, and you know Fuchs wrote about the social unconscious, but this concept of the social unconscious is being developed for 40 years now, since Fuchs died 34 years ago. Many people write about the social unconscious and try to define the social unconscious, and there are many definitions, not just one. But I want to say that for me, I don't want to say for others, for me, the collective unconscious is a very theoretical concept. And the social unconscious, I find it, for me, again, a very practical concept. Something I can work with, something I can really, experience and work with when I work with my groups or when I work with my patients.
Can I add?
Yeah, sure, please.
I think the collective unconscious of Jung is a fixed one. Those are symbols, and what they mean are fixed in the transpersonal, in the unconscious of everybody.
Yeah.
The social unconscious, which has 3 parts: foundation, matrix, dynamic matrix, and personal matrix, is more dynamic. It is changing. It is especially the dynamic part and the personal part. Foundation is more stable, but it is shared by a specific, a large community, a large culture. But the social unconscious has in it 2 more parts, which are the dynamic matrix and the personal matrix, and they are very flexible. They are changing according to reality, to present reality, according to the interactions between the personal and the social and the past and the transpersonal. Would you agree, Uri?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for bringing it.
Я хочу поблагодарить наших докладчиков за интересные доклады. Ури за такой очень и внести фактор реальности времени, потому что наше время завершилось, к сожалению, и не остается времени для пространства, для обсуждения, вопросов. Очень много, я думаю, уже сформировалось в голове. И наше время закончилось, перерыв у нас. Спасибо большое. Эту первую пленарную часть мы должны завершить. Спасибо большое.
But Tamara, let me thank Yaroslav for helping me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Да.
Большое
Дякую.
Спасибо.
Колеги, нагадую, що круглий стіл буде відбуватися в YouTube-трансляції, тому переходьте по посиланню саме на YouTube-трансляцію.